many of us remember order of operations from 5th grade, talking about PEMDAS? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So that's what we're going to continue working on because it is something that students definitely struggle with. Okay, so what comes first in order of operations, Peyton? Parentheses. So that's our P, everyone. So let's open it up. And we're going to write down parentheses.
Oh, okay.
What that means is you need to simplify any expression within parentheses first. So I'm going to give us an example problem. So we're going to have this problem right here. 4 squared plus parentheses 8 divided by 2 close parentheses times 3 minus 1. Yes, Peyton. Not yet. So this is going to be the example that we're going to do throughout this entire thing. Okay? So what did we say we must do first?
Parentheses.
So we're going to solve what's inside parentheses first, which means I do what first, everyone? Which is?
4.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the 4 squared. I'm not getting rid of it because I haven't done anything with it yet. I'm keeping that plus sign, but I solved what's inside that 8 divided by 2 inside that parentheses already, which you guys told me is 4. So I'm going to write a 4 instead of the 8 divided by 2. My parentheses go away because I finished with them. And then I'm going to write times 3 minus 1 because I did not do anything yet. Questions so far? Okay, well I'm done with parentheses, so what comes after parentheses?
Exponent.
So E stands for exponent, so let's open the E up. Write down exponents. And then we'll write once done with parentheses. Simplify, which means to solve, any terms with an exponent. Once done with parentheses, simplify any terms with an exponent, meaning get rid of the exponent. We do not want it anymore. We want it to go away. So we're going to take the problem and we're going to rewrite it. Not the whole thing, just the second line. So rewrite 4 squared plus 4 times 3 minus 1. What do I do now, everyone?
Take 4 times 4 times 4.
I do 4 squared. Now, should 4 squared be memorized?
Yes.
Yes, that's one of the ones on your memorization quiz on Wednesday. So 4 squared is what, everyone?
16.
So I would write 16, and then I bring everything else down with it. I rewrite the entire problem. I don't leave a single thing out. Order of operations is all about organization and step by step. Now are we done with our exponents?
Yeah.
So what do we do now?
Multiplication or division.
Good. So next is multiplication or division. Now, how do I know how to multiply or divide? Like, how do I know which comes first, which comes last? McKenna?
It goes multiplication and then division.
It does not.
Oh wait. Oh, it doesn't matter.
It does matter. We just got to be very specific. It does matter the order. Ethan? It goes from left to right. So we multiply or divide from left to right. We read a book from left to right, right guys? So we solve a math problem from left to right. So if a multiplication problem comes first, you multiply. If a division problem comes first, you divide. So let's write whichever comes first between the two is simplified first. So whichever problem you see first in order from left to right gets done first. So rewrite the problem, the 16 plus 4 times 3 minus 1. Now what problem do you see here that we need to solve?
4 times 3.
What do you see, everyone?
4 times 3.
Do we see a division problem at all?
No.
Which means we don't need to worry about that. We just get to do 4 times 3, and 4 times 3 is?
12.
What was it, everyone?
12.
So I rewrite the 16. Did I do anything with this plus sign?
No.
So I rewrite it. Bring down the 12 because that's the 4 times 3, and bring down your minus 1. Now we're done with multiplying and dividing, so what's my last step?
Subtraction and addition.
So A and S stand for add, addition, and subtraction. And I'm going to rewrite the problem. So what do you think, guys? If multiply or divide we solve from left to right, how do you think we solve addition and subtraction? The exact same thing. So add and subtract from left to right. Whichever comes first between the two is simplified first. So add and subtract from left to right. Whichever one comes first is simplified first. Okay, so here's what I mean by that. What two types of problems do we have left? What do we have left, everyone? So not everyone. Try again. Thank you. And we solve them in order from? So what comes first? Addition. That's 16 plus 12. So everyone do 16 plus 12. which is?
28.
So I'm going to write down 28, and then I'm going to bring down my leftover problem, which says minus 1. So what do I do now, everyone? So 28 minus 1 is?
27.
So what's my answer? There we go. You're not always going to have to do every single step. Sometimes you won't have to do parentheses at all. That's okay. Sometimes you won't have to do exponents at all. You will not always have every single step, but you have to make sure you go in order if you do. Questions so far? Alright, we glued in a bunch of practice problems into our notebook. So let's go to the one where it says 5 squared times 2 squared divided by 10. Now these are in the shape of pizza slices because order of operations, if you're solving them properly, should end up looking like a pizza slice because you're solving them, it is an upside down triangle. Go step by step by step. We never, ever, ever, ever skip steps. Is that understood? So what's the first thing we need to do in terms of order of operations? Parentheses. Do we have any parentheses here? So that means we get to skip it because there are none. What comes after parentheses? Do we have exponents? Now I have 2 exponents, right? Which one should I solve first? The 5 squared or the 2 squared?
5 squared.
Good. Always solve from left to right. 5 squared should be memorized. 5 squared is?
25.
So I'm going to write 25, and I'm going to bring down the times, bring down the 2 squared, bring down the divided by 10. I do one problem at a time, and I show every single line of work. What should I do now? Now I have to do the 2 squared, which should also be memorized. What's 2 squared, everyone?
4.
So I'm going to write 25 times 4 divided by 10. Do you guys notice how I'm doing one problem per line? I'm not mixing it up. The moment I start mixing it up is when mistakes can start possibly being made. Okay, exponents are done, so what comes after exponents? And multiplication and division must be solved in order from? So what comes first? Good, everyone do 25 times 4. Think of quarters. 4 quarters. $25 times 4 is? So I'm going to write 100, and then I'm going to bring down my divided by 10, which in this case is my last problem I have to solve. So everyone do 100 divided by 10 for me, which is? So what's my answer? Box it or circle it, please and thank you. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's do this one where it says 2 plus 1 in parentheses. There we go. And then close parentheses squared times 4. What do I have to do here first? Because this is a little where it can get a little tricky. What comes first? Do I have something inside parentheses I can solve? Absolutely. What do I have?
2 plus 1.
And what is 2 plus 1?
3.
So I'm going to bring down my 3 because that's that 2 plus 1. What else do I need to bring down with that 3? I bring down that squared, right? Make sure you keep it a squared and not a 3 times 2 because that'll mess people up. So make sure you keep it a squared and bring down your times 4. What now? Exponents. 3 squared. Should 3 squared be memorized? Yes, it should. What's 3 squared?
9.
And then I have 9 times 4, which is the last problem, which gives me what?
36.
36, and I'm going to box it in. Okay, go straight down from there. What do you guys notice on this problem? There's two sets of parentheses. So the question is, if there's two sets of parentheses and we have to solve parentheses first, which one do I solve first? I have to solve the parentheses inside the parentheses first. So I'm going to do 4 times 5 first. Does that make sense to everyone? What is 4 times 5? 20. So I'm going to bring down that parentheses still, because I still have that parentheses. Bring down the 36. Bring down that minus sign. The 4 times 5, as you guys already told me, is 20. I then need to bring down that parentheses sign. That bracket is what they're called. And bring down the times 2. Do I have a question on that, anyone? Did that make sense? So if there's two sets of parentheses, do the one inside of it first before you do the big one. So now what should I do?
36 minus 20.
What should I do, everyone?
36 minus 20.
Good, everyone do 36 minus 20 if you haven't already. What do we get, everyone? And then we have one last problem to solve because that 36 minus 20 became a 16. I now have 16 times 2. 16 times 2 is?
32.
Alright, the last problem I want to solve with you is the one right below that. It says 4 and a dot. What does that dot mean? It's a multiplication. So if you see a dot, it means to multiply. And then I have parentheses 7 plus 3 cubed, or 3 to the power of 3, close parentheses. What do you think I have to do first on this problem? So first we do parentheses, right guys? But if you look at parentheses, there's an exponent inside parentheses, which means you have to do that exponent first. So everyone do 3 to the 3rd power for me. Be really careful. This is something that tricks people. Who would like to tell me what 3 to the 3rd power is? Izzy? 27. It is 27. So I'm going to bring down the 4, bring down that times sign, continue with my parentheses because I didn't get rid of my parentheses. Bring down that 7 plus 27 and keep that parentheses. So I'm not changing anything up except for that 3 cubed, or 3 to the power of 3. What do I do now, everyone?
7 plus 27.
Good. If you have not done 7 plus 27, please do that for me. What do we get, everyone?
34.
What do we get, everyone?
34.
And what's my last step? Good. Everyone do 4 times 34 if you haven't already done so yet. Most of us probably had to do a little bit of extra math here. What did we get?
136.
136. Do we all agree? Any questions? Okay, so what I need you to do is I'm going to have you solve the last 2 problems on that piece of paper. When you are done solving, you're going to bring your notebook up to me. I'm going to check them, and then you're going to grab your homework. Sound like a plan?